Hey guys, welcome to my another video. Today I'll be discussing about API and we'll be testing it in Python. So technically it's a short video on using API in Python. So what is API? API is nothing but a way of communicating from one machine to another, and it stands for Application Programming Interface. I won't be explaining you in depth on what is API and how it works. I'll be just explaining you a very basics out of it. So I'll be showing you through script how it's actually done. So if you want to understand, this is a very simple diagram where backend assets would be on the system or database or whichever service that it's providing, and it will have an API interface, and it's called as API endpoints. And these endpoints are accessed to our machine where we are running the script, and end user is nothing but we as a end user who are gonna run that script to access to API interface and get data or like update the data in the backend. So in API, it's called create. So create is nothing but creating a data in this backend. Next one is read. Read is nothing but getting data from the backend asset. Update is nothing but the way you change the value in the database through API, and delete is nothing but a way to delete the record in the backend asset or backend database. So it's in short form, it's even called as CRUD, where C stands for create, R for read, U for update, D for delete. That's it in the introduction part of the API. Now we'll straight away move ahead to the Python. So I'll be opening a browser, and if you ever want to use API in Python, this is something that you will always come up with. So we use a module called request in Python, and you can easily get this in Google. Like you just need to start like Python request, so it will take you here. Then it will have few description how it works, and it will show how you can actually use this module. It's a built-in module, but if you don't have installed, you can always install it in a go. So without wasting much time, I will straight away move ahead to the script. And one more thing, in this video, using API, I'll be playing around with this free geolocation.io website where I'll be doing a bunch of API requests to IP geolocation and try to find few of the data through API in Python script. Now, without wasting much time, let's go to terminal. I'll be using a virtual environment here so that I can control my libraries that I'm going to use. If you want to know how a virtual environment I created, you can always go to my previous videos and start using it. So I'm in a folder, it could be anything. So I'm in my YouTube tutorials folder. What I'll do is I will be using Python 3 and M, V, E, and V. So let's name it Python API environment. Okay. So what it should do is it should create a folder. Now what I do is source Python API bin activate. This will now activate the Python, and we'll be using the virtual environment that we created. So we're all good. Now just to test, looks like there is no module called request. So what you need to do is to add that module. You can just pip install request. This will always install the latest version of, but if you want to install specific version like equals to, what it'll do is now it will install the request whichever you have installed, and it will reinstall that version. Now if you want to go back to the default one, you can always do pip install, then it will uninstall the values and it will get the latest one. That's very straightforward. Now let's assume we got Python and request installed here. So what I'll do is I'll open a directory here, and I will create one more folder. Let's get testing API Python API testing. This is a folder. Now I'll create a Python script, Python API testing.py. And even before that one, what I would expect from you guys is you guys understand what is list, dictionary, and list of dictionaries, okay? And also a term called JSON. If you don't know what is JSON, don't worry about it. But you don't need to be expert in JSON to start using it. But once you start writing few scripts, you will understand what it really means. So let's forget all of these. Now let's create a function first, where we're gonna do a basic API request. So I will always do, let's say, API request, and I will give this is a function name, and let's say I from API request. Now to call this function, what I should do is if name equals to main, I will call function. So I don't have main function here, so I will define main function, then I will call API request as a function from here. So everything looks all good. Now I'll open my terminal. Let me take this side by side. So we got, let me get inside this API testing. So we got a full file called Python, then I'm using Python 3. So to test it, Python-v, so using Python 3.10. So now let's call this script. It's called Python, and script name is, so when we ran this script, it was able to get a request from this function. Let's go to the website that where we're gonna use the API. So what I'll do is I will get the API key. Okay, and let me go to the documentation. Let us create this using API in Python. So what it's doing, it's just doing a curl request to this endpoint, and it's passing two params. One is API key and one other is IP address. So let us copy this as a reference here into my script. This is the expected command that we need to convert into Python. So now what happens is, if you see here, anything on the left hand side after a question, before question mark, it's called URL. So you just copy the thing, and it's called endpoints, and hash is nothing but a comment in Python. And after question mark, there are a few values. One is API key and one is IP. So it's nothing but a params that we are passing it, and params are always in dictionary in Python. Dictionary means it will have key and value pair. So we got two, so let's make two of them. The first thing is API key, and this API key comes from here. The next one is IP address, and this IP address is 8.8.8.8. It could be anything. Now what we need to do is, in request, this is a curl command where we don't specify any method. That means it's a GET request. So if you go to documentation, so to do a GET request, you just need to copy this, exclude the authentication part as shown here, because we are using API key, so authentication is all good. What we'll do is just paste that one and end it. So So it's complaining there is no request in this script. So you just do is import and so now it's all green. We'll move this with our URL, and you just need to give params equals to params, right? So what happens now is this is a response that we received. So let me print first response one. So now good thing is you got a status code as 200. So there are a few ways that you can get the status code, something like status code equals to, it's gonna be response dot status code. So response is nothing, our response from this get request that we are doing. Now if you want to print it, you can print it as well. Now if you run it, you will see this as a proper 200. So our status code that we're gonna accept is 200. Just for the purpose of code equals to 200, then only you can print as successful request failed. I will show you how what it really means. Now what it's doing is, since the response was 200, we have displayed as successful, else failed. Now just for testing, let me come in this part and let me give a wrong API key. Could be like, now let me run the same script again. See here, we didn't get 200 requests, but we got different, right? So that's why it failed. I hope you understood what I tried to explain here. Now I've moved back to the actual key. You run it. Now it's showing as successful. So we're all good till here. Now we were able to see the status code. Now how do we get the output out of it? So data equals to, it's gonna be response dot JSON. This is a very standard way. So if you print this, now you'll get a bunch of data. See, now the request was for 8.8.8.8, and this is the response that we received for that IP address. Now this is displayed a bit randomly. Now if you want to make it beautiful, so in Python, let's come in this part first. So in Python, you can always do, you just need to do json.dumps. So if you getting this error that there is no module called dump, so you just need to import json dumps. What do we need to dump? Dump is nothing but converting this value into JSON readable format. I won't be explaining much about it, but for now, whenever you do response.json, to make it beautiful, you just need to use this command. So what you need to do now is response data, and let me give equals to 4. Now let me print it. If I print now, you see you will get a beautiful JSON formatted data, and it's much easier to read this data now compared to what it was earlier. So now if you just want to grab country of this IP address, how you could do it? So once you have a visual reference how the data are returned, this is in a dictionary format, right? So it has a key and it has a value. Now what do we want to do? We want to grab the country name. So let's comment this beautiful part here, and this is beautiful part is just for your visual reference. Like if you want to use the values inside the code, you don't need to dump these value. So now if you want to just grab country equals to response data, this is the whole data. Now you just want to grab that keyword, so just give this. Now if you try to print it, you should see country as United States. Now I will even make it more beautiful here. So let's say I will give country, and also let me print this in new line. Okay, if you do it, and I will add this thing at the end as well, few multiple lines. Okay, let me run this script, Python. See, this is what we wanted. Now you want to have another data. Let's say let's print this beautiful one again and see what else you want to grab from here. Now what you want to grab is country calling code. So same process here. Let me copy all this. Once you know how it's done, you don't need to hard code every time. Just calling code, country calling code, just give this value, and the key gonna be calling code. Now if you run this, let me comment this one again. So you got United States as a country that we wanted, and you got a calling code. So this is how you could do it. Now just for a reference, let me go to the website again, and let me grab an IP. Let's grab some IP as well. Let's say free was the IP of Facebook. So it could be anything. Just copy this one. This is just a reference. I'm just trying to show you these values. Now if you look query here, similar to Google, you will get a data. Now since it's from United States, you can always print in beautiful format and see what the response you are getting. If you see here, this is the IP address, and this is in United States, of course. City is Menlo Park because that's where Facebook is located. And yeah, this organization is Facebook, whereas previously we were saying in Google, right? So this is how you could do it. The scripts might look big now, but this is how you learn. So this is a API request. Now let me give one more example that's in here itself. What else it's showing? Okay, now let me do a bulk geolocation. Now initially we just did for one. Now let's assume we want to do for two IPs at once. So I'll just copy this as a reference. Then I will create one more function. Just make sure you guys don't get confused. Okay, I'm just taking this as a reference. So all of things gonna be very similar like here. So we'll get the API key and endpoints. And what else do we need? So we need to send IPs, but as a dictionary. What is dictionary? Sorry, as a list. So what is list? It's a combination of IPs. So So this is one IP. Then I will be also sending an IP starting with 8.8.8. Okay, why it's complaining. All right. So we now, just as a documentation, now we are trying to do a bulk. This time it's not doing get. This time it's doing post. Please be mindful. Like I've said earlier, there are lots of ways to do it. One is in terms of CRUD. First thing is create. R is read. We just did read using get request. And U is update. D is delete. So now post is nothing but we are going to update something. What we'll do is, like I've showed earlier, we got the params that we're gonna pass in, but this time it's gonna be as a, since I'm doing post, so whenever we're doing post, we need to send a data, not as a params, right? You should be very careful here. You see here, let me explain you again. If you see here, we are passing this as a params, but whenever you are doing post, we are passing this as data. So in Python, whenever you use post, I will show how it's done. So you're here. Now the params gonna be called as data. And we got the endpoint, like we said earlier. Let me check the API endpoint itself. Okay, even the API endpoint got changed. Let me grab the API endpoint for IPGU bulk. So this gonna be the new API key for the new API endpoint for bulk. And let me do query as post method. Okay, so we got the data. Now what we'll be doing is same. We'll be sending data now. So to do that, it's very similar to get request. What we do is response equals to request dot. Now careful, it's doing, we're gonna do post. We already have the URL. Now we will be passing JSON equals to data. So remember this thing, we are doing a post request and we are passing JSON data, right? And this is going to be JSON. So whenever you see these, JSON will be same for all the requests you're going to make, especially for post. And data, you could rename it as anything like XXX data. But just to make sure, you need to have the same value here. Now, similar to that one, I will grab status code. Similarly, if status code equals to 200, then we are all good. Else print post method failed. Okay, so I hope you understand it here. What I'll do is, just to get the data from the response, I will do same thing. Response .json. Okay. Now, if you print it, let me copy the same beautiful part first. Try to print it here. So response data, okay. Now let me comment this Python function and let me call the newly created function. We are not calling the initial get request function, but we are calling the post method function that we just coded, right? So let me run this script. It's going to be Python 1. The post method failed. There could be some reasons why it failed. So if you want to know, okay, this is a very interesting topic here. Now you want to know what's the error, right? So you can always do is print and print like response text. Now if you print it, so it's requesting API key is not being sent. Okay, so that's a good way to debug it. Okay, so looks like we did some mistake here. We don't pass the API key in JSON data. What we need to do is just like evolve. Let me grab params. Let me copy it. Params, and we are passing IP address as a list from data. So we are just defining it again like we did above. So params, now we got the params with API key, and we just need to do params goes to params. So looks like we are all good. Now let me run the command again. Bulk IPGLX do not support it under free subscription. All right. So what it's saying is we got it, we did it correctly, but maybe this is a free version, so we were not able to print it properly. So that's why it failed. So that's totally fine. So this is how you could do GET request and POST request. And I think that's all for now. But I think in the upcoming videos, I have very interesting videos coming up in future. So I'll be writing Python API scripts, maybe to deploy a machine in AWS, or maybe we will try deploying machine in, it could be in Azure or maybe GCP itself. So once you understand how API works, you are literally able to automate a lot of things. So yeah, that's all for this video. I think in next video, I'll be working with some API response to the actual AWS server. So let's see how it goes. Till then, bye for now.